And welcome back to Dogs Do Speak. Unfortunately, today we do not have the wonderful Samantha Wayland with us, but stepping into Samantha's shoes is Laura Mars, another wonderful dog trainer. So Laura is with us for today. Today we're going to be speaking to Sarah Hedderly. Now, most of you will know who Sarah is because Sarah's expertise is Border Collies. And Border Collies, as we do know, are not the easiest of dogs to understand and work with. However, Sarah's been working with them for quite some time. And in a few minutes, we're going to get Sarah to introduce herself. And then at some point, Sarah's going to hit us with some good news. Yeah. But just before that, please hit that submit button, subscribe button, I should say, so you do not miss any of the content that we put out here at Dogs Do Speak. So, without further ado, over to you, Sarah, and thank you for coming along.
Thank you for inviting me to chat, Colin.
Sarah, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, why you do it, how you got into the dog training world? Before we'll talk a bit about your background, and then we'll go and you can then go and tell everybody exactly why you're really here.
Okay, so I am Sarah Hedderly. I only work with Border Collies, so slightly unusual in that I only work with one breed of dog. I've done that for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I did work with all breeds, although funnily enough, when I was working with all breeds, the majority I attracted were Border Collies. So they have been my dogs throughout my whole life. My first dog was a Border Collie. And yeah, I love the intelligence, the energy, I don't know if quirks is the right word to describe them, because actually all unwanted behavior in Border Collies usually stems back to what they're bred for, and they are a working breed of dog, which we then try and keep in a pet home. And that's really where people come unstuck without realizing that, their dog is a working breed of dog. So yeah, when I started to geek out just on the one breed, it really emphasized the need for that geeking out, because when you work with larger samples of one breed, you start to realize actually the common, and when I refer to things as behaviors that people don't want, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad dog. I do want to say that. But the common problems that people have with them all stem back to what they're bred for. And if you don't realize where it's coming from, they are labeled as bad dogs, difficult dogs. Um, so, yeah, I became more and more and more fascinated by the breed itself and in helping people with their dogs so that they could live their best lives together, because we have them for companionship. We have them for adventures and doing things together. And some people were finding that they couldn't safely do that.
I think it's a marvelous idea when we work with a specific breed. Similar to you, I don't have a clue when it comes to border collies, I have to be honest. But I love working with the Rottie. Yeah, there's not much I would love to believe that I don't understand about that breed. Yeah, and I think I give Rottweiler owners a purpose of how to build that relationship, how to get the best from their Rotties, because I spend most of my time just concentrating on that particular breed, and you get to know them and understand them better than if when we're working across the board with all different breeds. Yeah. So I think that's wonderful that you just work with border collies because, like I said, I haven't got a clue. I know they got a head, a tail, they got four legs. Other than that, I don't understand them. Yeah. So Sarah, what types of problems that you actually get coming to you?
Yes, so car chasing is one of the big ones. And all of what I would call the normal problems, as in pulling on the lead, recall. But even within that, there's certain things that I would say are more common in a border collie. For rewards, Border Collies find movement really rewarding. So we can use movement in loose lead walking as rewards. It doesn't all have to be about food or toys. With recall, they may come back so far and then stop and stand and look at the person. And then it's that interaction of pressure between the two. So they play stay away so that they can keep their freedom because they like to be independent. So even within recall, there are certain things that, we want to work on proximity work so that they do know the end behavior of what they're supposed to do, rather than just, playing stay away and not being able to be caught at the end of a walk and things like that. We do then get also reactivity problems, which again, you can have reactivity in any breed of dog. But it can also be for different reasons in a Border Collie, because they're not always fearful if they're overreactive to things. It could be frustration because their instinct is telling them to control the movement. So it's inappropriate herding, or frustration because they're on a lead because they haven't been taught to only herd things when it's appropriate or when they're cued to do so. So there's lots of pressure, body language, interactions between Border Collies, people, anything that moves. They also have a lot of, and this obviously isn't all Border Collies, but they would probably have more household issues than some other breeds. So reacting to the hoover is really, really common because you've got noise and you've got movement. So a lot will jump at the hoover to try and control the movement of it. Some might be scared of it. Some might literally just then actually really want to control it. So going on from there, you can have problems with hair dryers, food mixers, the microwave, even to the extent I've had quite a few that don't like sellotape or foil in the kitchen when people are cooking, but they will know which drawer in the house that is coming out of. And then they'll start to react when that drawer opens or when that cupboard opens. Now, I feel like I'm painting a really bad picture. Not all Border Collies will have all of these issues, but I would say that these quirky issues, like in the house, are probably more so in that breed than in many other breeds.
Yeah, I mean, some of the problems I found when I tried, and I emphasize on the word tried working with humans and their Border Collies, was the nipping, the lunging and nipping below, and it was always below the kneecaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
And usually of the leg, more so than front of the leg. Yeah.
Is that the herding instinct trying to control the movement?
Yes. Yeah. So this is again, it can be due to pressure. And we also have to understand that when a dog is stressed, they will revert to what they know and what instinct tells them to do. So even a dog that is scared or anxious may revert more to inappropriate herding behavior than a dog that is happy, confident in itself, because doing what is instinct is intrinsically rewarding. So it makes them feel good. And if we haven't worked with them so that they understand, just like a farmer with a dog going out to collect the flock, they wouldn't be allowed to just come off of their lead or their chain in the yard and just run straight out and collect any sheep or livestock that was there. They would be under control. So they would know when they were allowed to go and do that and when they weren't. So teaching our dogs impulse control, because they're bred to be naturally impulsive dogs, is really, really important. But also understanding the difference between the environments that we put them in, with their eyes, their ears. They're way more sensitive than other breeds of dogs in especially picking up movement with their eyes. So therefore we bring them into an urban environment and everything is massively stimulating for them. So teaching them that off switch as a starting point, teaching them impulse control, it can never be underestimated for our pet Border Collies.
How do you think, so, meeting a Border Collie's need, how would you start? Because I can imagine a Border Collie in a home environment, that teaching that impulse control in that off switch, must be pretty intensive for a border collie to, because there are so many stimuli. How can an owner, even start to support their border collie with that in the home environment?
Sure. And I love this question, because before I really started getting into only border collies, I went along with all of the rest of the dog training industry that was saying, meet their needs, get a herding ball, play herding games, do all of these things because they have to herd to be happy dogs. What I've actually found is that if you do that before you've actually got their training in place and under control, it brings out that herding instinct more so. So then they need more of it, and they will find it in other places where you haven't actually got control of them. So especially if you've got a dog that's maybe reactive because of misplaced herding instinct, then actually it can make that reactivity increase and be worse. So as long as we're making sure that they have enough physical exercise, enough mental stimulation, they have to have mental training as well to be really happy, satisfied dogs, because they love using their brains. So it shouldn't all be about running, although they do need off-lead free running. Ideally, you will always find outliers in everything that we're talking about. But they do need that physical exercise. And we can get inventive about how we do that. Some trick training is really physical, like leg weaves, where they're really bending their body and moving, teaching them to run out around a tree or a goalpost and come back, because then you're also training the come back part, but they're also doing that outrun. So we can teach them lots of things like that, which incorporate both physical exercise and mental training. And that can meet their needs much more than actually getting them a herding ball, the dog going crazy in the yard or the garden for, a while with it, and then them coming in high as a kite and getting stuck in arousal.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in an ideal world, yes, we would accommodate certain breeds to live in certain parts of the world or country that they're going to be more comfortable in. But we don't live in an ideal world. And so border collies are going to be in big cities. Yeah. It was only a few weeks ago I was driving through central London, and I was amazed as I was driving up the Strand to see the Strand in central London, this lady with two border collies. Yeah. You can clearly see they live locally. And I'm thinking, wow, how do you cope? So having someone like yourself that has a massive and good understanding about the breed is huge in my eyes, because I don't think there are a lot of people out there. There are a few that have that understanding of what they actually need as a breed of dog. And for me, I'm stumped. I'm completely stumped when I'm working with them. So coming back to people with problematic. So the question I just asked basically. So the nipping on the knees, just below the knees, yeah. How do you sort of start to get that sort of rectified? Where do you
Yeah.
start?
So there's two ways to look at this. Obviously, in an ideal world, we would recognize it straight away and prevent it happening. But as you know, as dog trainers, we quite often see people after problems have started rather than, being able to prevent these things. So I'd like to talk about it from both points of view, because if you have a collie that hasn't done that, and then you get another collie which does, it can seem like you've got a problematic dog rather than actually a border collie with more herding instinct. So it does depend a little bit why they're doing it, but I would say reduce stress in the dog in its overall life, because in case it is misplacing herding because of stress, so we need to look at stress detox. That can be visual and auditory, making sure that they have good rest, good sleep patterns, obviously that they're fit and healthy, because pain can also make dogs revert to what's intrinsically rewarding. So making sure, obviously, all of those bases are covered, which we would in all breeds of dog anyway. But then I would be working on literally one of the first things I teach is mat work, to teach them to be able to relax, switch off. But then I add in movement, so that I'm straight away teaching them that actually you can be calm in the presence of movement. That will be just me moving to begin with, but then I'll build that to high arousal things as well. So obviously then we can build to me running, we can build to throwing toys, we can build to then taking it outside and other people are moving around. But then also alongside the impulse control training that we're doing, we've got a dog that can switch off in the presence of movement. And it usually is about control when they're, nipping people's legs and feet. Problem is with a puppy, puppies do things and we think it's funny and cute. And they might pounce at somebody's foot. So somebody just moves their foot like that and then the puppy pounces. But actually, if you do that with this breed of dog, you can build then a dog that suddenly becomes an adolescent that is even more impulsive. And actually, it's doing what you've taught it to do as a puppy because it was funny with a little puppy. But a lot of people will have this problem with visitors to the house, where the dog might be stressed about new people or people he doesn't know coming into the house. Some dogs will let people in, but it's when they go to leave that's the problem. Whereas some, it might be when they're coming in as well. Obviously, when we're on walks, we can also get this to some extent with joggers, cyclists. It's movement. Obviously, children as well. They move fast, erratically. They make high-pitched squealing noises, which, raises their arousal level even more. And then usually, if the person stops, the dog will stop. And that's because it's about controlling the movement. If the thing stands still, and when I say the thing, obviously the person in these situations. But if the item that they're reacting to stops and stays still, they will usually stop. So initially with a puppy, you might just use the stopping method. And I know with other trainers with other breeds as well, you might say to children, be a tree, stand still, be a tree, wait for the dog to disengage. Just doing that is a starting point. But once a Border Collie has learnt to do this, and actually it's intrinsically rewarding to the dog, they might then, wait for them to move again. And so I would say that's the starting point with a puppy. Make it boring. As soon as they do something like that, just stop and stand still, wait for them to disengage, and the puppies will disengage a lot quicker. If you've got a more adolescent or an older dog that it's become a habit, a way of them dealing with themselves, either through stress or because actually they really enjoy the controlling of movement, then it is about really teaching the impulse control so that they never start that in the first place.
This question, sorry, Laura.
No, that's
this question might sound really stupid to some. Now, we all know that sleep, good sleep, is very important for all dogs. But I personally believe some dogs it's far more important for certain breeds. Yeah. Would you say the Border Collie fits that build?
I would say potentially they may not need as much as some other dogs because they are bred as working dogs to work for long periods of time. So they do have potentially a bit more stamina than some pet dogs. Where it's really important is the difference between, some people will say, oh, you're over-exercising your dog, so it's overstimulated. I would say it's much more common to see an overstimulated dog or overstimulated Border Collie than an overexercised one. And that's usually because of all the visual stimulation that they've got going on, or auditory stimulation that they've got going on, rather than the physical aspect of them running, using their brain. So I would say that it's very rare that I would say actually it's the length of time that you're doing stuff. It's usually more so the overstimulation, which then causes the lack of, being able to regulate their arousal level. So this is where city life can be difficult for some border collies, because it's constant movement all the time, which, you know, they see amplified movement to what we do. So really looking at do they have proper rest time in the house where there's nothing moving around them, or, you know, it's quiet for them, which obviously in a block of flats, there's more noise going on, so they may not rest as well. If you're in a busy family home, you might have children, children's friends, more people coming and going. Is the dog's bed in a quiet part of the house where they can genuinely relax, or are they in the hallway where everybody's passing them all the time? Yeah. So looking at those sorts of things as well can be really helpful.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Colin, so it's a bit of a combination of thinking about what type of exercise, and do they have that kind of downtime? Because I can see a comparison here in maybe the conversations I might have with clients about their Cocker Spaniel. You know, the Cocker Spaniel can come up and do fast really easily, but it's the let's slow them down, give them exercise that uses their brain and gets them thinking, and they find it harder to be slow. So actually, let's do that, the slow thinking, rather than the high energy, because exercise isn't just about running fast. So it's about meeting the, you know, I would know a little bit more about a spaniel than, you know, your expertise around a collie, but I can see a comparison here in terms of, you know, not thinking exercise is just running, thinking about what type of exercise for your breed.
Yeah.
So that would, I mean, when we look at breed specifics or breeds, individual breeds, what you just said there, Laura, makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think when we look at exercise, we need to really sit down and think about what type
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
physical exercise.
Yeah.
You know, Rotties love exercise, but when I have my own dogs, I don't just give them loads and loads of running, because that can be very overstimulating for Rotties. Yeah, their exercise will be incorporated with certain games as well as that fast motion of movement. So they learn how to control and regulate themselves to interact with the sport or the game we're actually doing. So I can see border collies. Um, I would say more of a specialism, yeah, along with the breed of husky, which they stump me, because you're right, Sarah. When something's moving fast and that thing becomes static, yeah, and they just stop, and then they elongate their necks and the rest of their bodies are stretched out. Yeah, it took me a while to understand that, wow, the dog's only stopping because you stopped, but it's not going to do anything until you move again. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And that's where I seem to become unstuck. Whereas working with other breeds, I find it more easy. Yeah. So I do say that border collies are a specialist type of dog that need a trainer that totally understands them. Yeah. Because I've now sort of learned, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, there are different types of border collies, aren't there?
Yes, in that you obviously you get your show line and you get your more ISDS or your working line, but we shouldn't be aiming to breed the border collie out of the border collie. You know, that they should still be a border collie. There is research to show that the show line is less impulsive than the working line. However, I see just as many people with a show collie struggling with the herding instinct because they weren't expecting it to be as strong as it is. And then obviously you'll get dogs that are bred on a farm that actually then fail as sheepdogs because they haven't got the desire to work in the way that, you know, a farmer might need them to. So yeah, we still need to think, yes, you can go for certain lines that might be, you know, some are slightly harder lines than others. If you go for dogs that work with cattle, they tend to be stronger dogs. But that said, I know some fantastic cattle dogs that are just amazing dogs. And I know some, when I say pet border collies that have been bred from two pets rather than two working dogs, that have had just the same issues to work through. So it is a combination of genetics, the environment that we raise them in, and all of the things.
Everything that sits beneath. Sarah, what would you say, what would you want the world to know about a Border Collie?
Really to treat them like a working dog. So even if you're bringing them into a different environment, know the differences, know that their eyes work differently, in that they have more rods than us, less cones, so they detect movement at huge distances away. And so just to realize how overstimulating the environment is. And so when we socialize, in inverted commas, our young dogs, that actually work first on focus on us. Because if you take an 8-week-old puppy into a really overstimulating environment and they've already got eye wanting to control movement, you're actually just, instinct is going to overtake, and then you're going to always be fighting that losing battle. So really look at what drives the Border Collie, because that is going to help you, throughout your life with them, and embrace it. They're amazing dogs, but they do need the input there, which some pet dogs may not need as much input.
Yeah. And a whole lot of researching of where you're getting your Border Collie from. Would that be equally important?
It is. It's something that is oh, I don't know how to talk about this really, because you can get good dogs come out of bad situations, and bad dogs, I hate using the word bad dogs, more difficult dogs come out of good situations. Yes, we want to minimize the chances. So it really depends on the person as to what is the right fit, because actually if you get a rescue dog, they might be slightly older, so you might have a clearer picture of what you're getting. Obviously I don't sort of advise going to a puppy mill or anything like that. We want, ideally, if we're going to go to a breeder, we want them to be health tested, so that we again minimize as much as we can. Epilepsy can run in some lines of Border Collies, and there are certain health issues. So the more that you've done to minimize the unwanted parts, the rest is then just down to training, isn't it? And looking for really good temperaments, because at the end of the day, we have a pet dog to be our companion. And not all Border Collies are as social, because they're not necessarily bred to be social dogs, they're bred to be working dogs. So looking at that can be really important for people as well.
So do you think there's a lack of, sometimes it's not necessarily about researching, obviously we would always say research where your dog is coming from if you're getting a puppy, or perhaps even consider an older rehome dog. But is it more about ensuring that a Border Collie is right for you, and how can Joe Bloggs know that?
Can we ever know what we're getting?
Sarah, would that neatly lead you on to your surprise that you're going to talk to us about today? How might they develop their understanding?
Yeah, so I think, and this is why I have written my book. So I have written a book, Understand Your Border Collie. This is one of my girls on the armchair there. So I think it's very difficult when we have so much access nowadays to social media, the internet. If we ask a question to enough people, we will get the answer that we want. But it's really going in with our eyes open. Most people get a Border Collie because they've seen really well-trained dogs, or they knew one as a kid and, it was a fantastic dog. My first Border Collie came off of a farm, and she was, I refer to her as a unicorn, because she was just the perfect pet dog. She came everywhere with us. She, I didn't know anything about training, and she was just an amazing dog. But then you expect every Border Collie to be like that. And you don't necessarily have to go into all of the depth of knowledge of all of the problems that could have been brought about. So I think going into, is this the right breed for you? Really looking at, okay, so what are the pitfalls? Or if I do get a dog of this breed, what am I going to need to do? So, am I living in a situation where I'm out at work 8 hours a day? I live in a flat in a big city. A Border Collie wouldn't be what you would choose for that sort of a person, because although you may get the odd Border Collie that is quite happy in that environment, it's going to be a lot harder for both you and the dog. So you wouldn't necessarily advise a Border Collie for, that. That said, I have some amazing clients that live in cities with their Border Collies, and they've worked really hard, and they have a fantastic relationship with their dog. They've worked through lots of problems in the most challenging of environments, but they are so committed with the time and effort that they put into doing that. So I think just being aware of the differences on how to raise them so that you're setting both you and the dog up for success. If you're aware of things and you almost look at worst case scenario with any breed of dog, then you're going to only find it easier and better than it should be. So yeah, I hate saying, oh, you shouldn't have a Border Collie for your first dog, because actually I've got several clients who have had a Border Collie for their first dog, and they are just doing amazingly with them. I had a Border Collie for my first dog. So it can work, but just being aware of what we're getting.
Yeah. And then sorry, Colin, go on.
I was just going to say, so Sarah, what inspired you to actually write that book? And is that book geared for dog trainers, or is it geared for the client, the puppy owner, the owner, or is it geared for both?
It's geared for anybody interested in the breed that wants to think about it. So it's not specifically for trainers. It is written for owners. So it's really geared for explaining behavior from the Border Collie's viewpoint, really. So with my online work, then I every so often run free trainings, 5-day free trainings, and one of them is about understand your Border Collie. So actually the first 5 chapters of the book are based around that 5-day challenge, and I have so much feedback from that training saying, this should be essential reading for every Border Collie owner or anybody thinking of getting a Border Collie. Obviously in the book I've taken that a step further because there are several more chapters as well, but really thinking about behavior from the breed sort of viewpoint can really change how people feel about their dogs. A lot of people feel that they've got a dog that is a one-off. They're the only person with that behavioral problem. And then when they join the trainings and they, see so many other people with exactly the same issues as what they're working through, they actually realize it's not the dog's fault. They have to approach it from this point of view to help the dog. And it really changes relationship. So I also understand that, monetary cost of things around the world isn't as easy nowadays as it was. So it's a way of people being able to access the information in a more affordable way.
Can you hold the book up one more time for us? Because I think it's an absolutely lovely. Oh, well, look, that is absolutely. I'm going to get one. Just looking at the cover makes me want to get this particular book. So, how can people find you to find out more about your work, or if they wanted to register and sign up with you, how can they find you?
Sure. So my business is called Dingbat Dog Training. Dingbat is a bit of a Marmite name for some people because in different countries it can mean different things. Some people think I'm being rude about the dog because they say it's about an idiot, but actually it's named after one of my dogs. He's called Springer Dingbat, and the bat part is because he's from Battersea Dogs Home. He plays the fool. He plays up to, the goofy fool, but he's actually really, really intelligent. So that's where the name comes from, doing back dog training. You can also access the book on Amazon, or you can get it in Waterstones. Is it Barnes and Noble? So it should be available worldwide.
Is there a time span when it will be available, or is it available now?
Thursday the 9th. So not long to wait. It will be available from then. Yes.
Wow.
Thursday, the 9th of October.
Yes.
Brilliant. Sarah,
Very
can I ask you, is there a, you said your first 5 chapters is based on that, those kind of workshops you ran, but is there a favorite chapter? Is there something you really enjoyed writing?
Oh, I'm going to have a look at the chapters.
All of it, maybe.
No, I really struggle with writing because I am dyslexic and I don't find writing comes easily. But when you're writing something that you're really interested in,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier. I do really love talking about what drives a border collie and how they are made differently. So the attributes of a border collie, which is chapter 3. I have included chapter 6 is all about mindset help for the owner.
Yeah.
Because I do feel sometimes, and I've been here myself with a couple of my dogs, where actually the dog hasn't really turned out to be what you've dreamt of.
Yeah.
And the struggles that you have to work through. Ding was that difficult dog. And Sparkles, who is the little dog on the cover here, she's just 2, but she's had spinal surgery this year. And so she's been in pain all of her life. And her behaviors that came out of pain have been really, really challenging for both of us. She hasn't been a pleasant dog to live with. Since she's had surgery, she's a lot better. So, obviously pain played a huge part in her early learning. So yeah, really getting to understand the individual dog
Yeah,
is so
absolutely.
important. So I think for me, those 2 chapters.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's really important. Yeah, so understanding the dog and their natural drives, and then that gives you an appreciation of some of the behaviours you're seeing, a bit more of an understanding. But actually, the human end, because I think that's something we all see as trainers. It's really hard, isn't it? And a phrase that I often say that springs to mind that's come about. I think it came about through Monty Roberts, the cowboy, is that, and I often say to clients, you thought you were getting beans, but you got spicy beans. And I love that. And I think often that is, isn't it, your expectations, the dream of what you had in your head of you and your border collie or you and any dog. But actually, when you're faced with the reality of what you got, and clients, and owners aren't always, prepared for that. And then there's a sense of loss and grief while you're dealing with the actual reality of the dog you got. And that can be really hard and isolating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fairly common theme. It's what I love about my membership, in that everybody is so supportive of each other, because they've all felt it at some point. But when you're feeling low, it's so easy to give up. And another driving force really for me with the Border Collies is that obviously since COVID, all of the rescue centres have been inundated and they're all still full, and doing their best to help as many dogs as possible. But there are so many Border Collies. And I know that, as I say, it's not just Border Collies, but I was approached by a big organisation because every dog that was waiting to go into their kennels was a Border Collie. And there was another rescue who, I think it was something, I can't remember the exact percentage, it was something like 88%, or it was a really high percentage of their dogs were Border Collies. And Border Collies don't do well in kennels in that environment because, they're not getting what they need. But I think so many people went out and got dogs, with COVID, and the problem doesn't seem to be going away. So I think, that we really have to start thinking about dogs in general. Why are we getting a dog? Have we got the time for them? We may not have got the knowledge yet, but are we prepared to put in what that dog needs to become the perfect pet? Because they don't necessarily know how to be a perfect pet, especially when they're bred to be a working dog and not a perfect pet. So hence the title of the book, really.
That's such a powerful message and such a brilliant thing that, people can get from your book. That's really excellent.
Totally agree, Laura. Totally agree. One last time, Sarah, can you hold the book up and can you tell us, just remind us when it's going to be published, when people can actually get it, and how people can contact you? Come and join your Facebook group if that's how it works, and the name of the Facebook group.
Okay, so obviously the book is called Understand Your Border Collie. It's available on Amazon from the 9th of October. You can also get it from Waterstones, Barnes and Noble. It should be available in all of your good bookshops. You can get obviously the paperback or the hardback version. If you want to come and find me on social media, Facebook is where I am mostly. So you can find me there under my name, Sarah Hedderly _Dingbat Dog Training. I am on some of the other platforms, but I would say that Facebook is my place where I hang out the most. And I have got a free training group where I run the free trainings, which is called Dingbat Border Collie Training.
Wow. Sarah, thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
I will be definitely getting your book 100%. And that cover is it's so attractive. Yeah, it's just how, as soon as you held it up, I looked at it and thought, I've got to get one of those. And funny enough, or as stupid as it may be, that's how I get my books.
It has got a little story as well behind the photo, because originally I wanted Ding to be on the cover because, here's my boy. But some of my Academy members bought me a photo shoot with a photographer, and so I took all of the dogs along, and that was one of the photos. So they actually paid for the photo shoot as well. So it has different meanings. And then little Sparkles herself, we've been through it these last 2 years, and so actually working her out and understanding her and getting to the bottom of her condition has taken quite a toll. So yeah, it means quite a lot, the cover.
Lovely.
Hey, for those of you who are watching, just remember it's called Understand Your Border Collie. It's going to be out in the next few days. So go grab your copy. Sarah, it's been really, really interesting and amazing for you to come along today and tell us a bit more about Border Collies. And I hope lots of people go out and get this book. For those of you that don't know Sarah I can highly recommend that Sarah Hedderly is your go-to person when it comes to Border Collies. And I don't mind saying that, I've been doing, I've been in the industry for a while now, but I send people Sarah's way.
Yeah, me too.
And Laura as well, because I have no idea about the Border Collie. And if you've got a Husky, please don't come to me because I have no idea about them too. You got a Rottie and a Doberman, come over to me. I'm definitely going to be able to help you. So, Sarah, it's been a pleasure for talking with you today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. And Laura for standing in for Samantha. Please hit that subscribe button so you do not miss anything that we put out on the Dogs Do Speak podcast. And please, 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 please go get that book. Until we all meet again, it's goodbye from myself, Sarah, and Laura. So have a good rest of your day or whatever you're doing, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.